We have a guest who's going to stay with us. He brought himself all the way over from America. What's the name again, mate?
Jimi Hendrix.
The gig doesn't pay that much. I mean, we're broke, but we're cool. Might as well hang out with it.
Directed by Oscar winner John Ridley, Andre Benjamin stars in the new film Jimi, All Is By My Side, based on a year in the life of rock guitarist Jimi Hendrix as he began to carve out his own unique sound. Welcome back to Arise on Screen. I'm Mike Sargent, here with Bobby Rivers and Zeba Blay, film critics extraordinaire. So I like this movie, but I did find it unsatisfying. Now, I think you agree, Bobby, because we were talking about biopics earlier, and you like to see a little more meat on the bone, as it were.
Exactly. What I said at the top of the show is when I go to a biopic, I want to see the focus on the person who became a star. And when it felt like the first 20 to 30 minutes of this were about the women in Jimi Hendrix's life, not about Jimi.
Well, you know what's interesting is John Ridley, who's a writer-director, and he won the Oscar for 12 Years a Slave.
Yes.
That the women are really what inspired him to want to make this movie.
I didn't know that.
He heard the song, and he wondered, who is this woman that he's singing about?
But it takes the focus off him. It's like if you go to see a biopic about John Lennon, and then you're finding out more about Yoko than you find out about John.
That can be interesting too,
it can be.
Right? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be all about Jimi. I think the problem here is that it's not, the women aren't really fully realized characters. They're not really interesting.
And you felt the film was a little bit unfocused overall.
Yeah.
So tell me why.
Well, I just felt that, I thought it was a genius idea, given that they couldn't use a lot of the music that we know,
any of the music,
that we know of Jimi, to follow him during that year when he was in London. He was just about to get started, but I felt that a lot of times the script was just meandering through that year. It wasn't really, what are the big moments? What are the defining points in himself as an artist?
Well, there are two other things that I think that you both disagree on, and I'm kind of in the middle. Now, you felt that they have this thing where they use footage and clips from the 60s and photographs and things like that. You felt it gave an overall 60s
It gave you a flavor of the 60s.
You see, you felt it was too gimmicky. We already know we're in the 60s.
Yeah, it was awful. It was just like, you don't need to place us so heavily in. We know this is Jimi. We know where we are. Like, just let's get to the story. And I felt that it was trying too hard to be stylistic and edgy, and I think Jimi was already that. You didn't have to do that.
I agree, but I think what I found is first-time directors have a habit of getting very creative in the editing.
Right.
Because it's another, the movie's really directed 3 times, when you write it, when you're on set, and when you're editing. And they get in there and they really want to do all these things. And I do feel it took away from the film and the narrative, because the narrative was kind of paper thin in a way. And I think it's really buoyed by Andre Benjamin's performance.
That is the best thing.
He's the best thing in the movie.
Did you get the feeling that, this is how I felt. When the end came, I went, what?
Very abrupt.
It was a very abrupt.
That was, the end was so abrupt. I had not been that unsatisfied since my prom night. It's like,
Stop.
It's over?
All right, well, we're going to move on. Our next film is called Two Night Stand, and it stars Miles Teller and Annalee Tipton as two people who meet online for a one-night stand, but then get trapped together in a snowstorm.
Morning, Megan.
Morning, Alex.
Actually, it's Alec. Hey, so do you want to grab breakfast, or do you normally just take off?
Normally?
Do you expect me to believe this is your first one-night stand?
Yes.
Well, you see, this is a movie where I thought the premise could really be interesting.
Yes.
And I feel, even though that this is Mike Nichols' son, Max Nichols,
right.
He should have done what his father did and worked with a woman to create this script.
Like Nichols worked with Elaine May. It would have given a nice texture and depth to the movie. This topic, this subject has been done before in the 60s. One of my favorite films, a classic that made me want to move to New York, Love with the Proper Stranger. Natalie Wood.
You wanted to move to New York because you wanted one-night stands?
No.
Okay.
But the way that, not with my looks. The way that it portrayed New York, and went, these were. But the thing is, the Steve McQueen, Natalie Wood characters were people that you cared about. There was character development. Compared to this new movie, Two Night Stand, there's more romantic charm and a better script in a classic Pepe Le Pew cartoon.
Stop.
No, for real.
Bobby, how do you really feel?
Well, I felt it was more like a half-hour situation comedy.
Yeah.
There was really no second and third act.
There was not a lot of depth to it. Now, you felt that all the romantic, the rom-com tropes kept poking their way through the script.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because you're right. It is a premise that could really be interesting, could be a cute little, independent romantic film. And it was so self-aware and so unsure of itself that it kept kind of, okay, let's go back to the opposites attract thing. The gags, it could have been a lot more honest because you had two actors who are quite charming. I find Miles Teller very charming.
Yes.
But the chemistry just wasn't there.
Well, I agree with you. I think Miles Teller is a very charming actor, and I think that's why he's got all these big projects coming up. And but this is not going to do anything for his career. So we're going to move on, and we'll be back. When we return.
When you're in a battle against an enemy so much bigger, so much stronger than you, but to find out you had a friend you never knew existed, well, that's the best feeling in the world.
In the British drama Pride, it's the summer of 1984 when two unlikely groups unite to fight one enormous cause. Through it all, the two groups discover that standing together makes for the strongest union of all. Next, here on Arise on Screen.
I told you we don't eat people.
Why do you keep saying we? You're not one of them. You're a boy.
No, I'm not. I'm a Boxtroll. Eggs, the Boxtroll.
The Boxtrolls is a new stop-motion animated feature about an orphan boy named Eggs who is raised by, well, Boxtrolls, who live underground and collect trash. It features the voice talents of Sir Ben Kingsley, Nick Frost, Tracy Morgan, and a host of talented actors. Hi, I'm Mike Sargent, and this is Arise on Screen. With me in the studio still is Zeba Blay of ShadowandAct.com and Bobby Rivers of just being Bobby Rivers.
How you doing?
How you doing? All right, so I really was surprised how much I liked this movie, because they've been hyping it and hyping it. I'm like,
yes, I thought,
come on. I was pleasantly surprised, and you were as well.
I was. This is animated eye candy. It's a visual taste.
Stop motion.
Yes.
Eye candy, which is different than the CGI we're used to.
A visual taste treat for the whole family. I recommend it if you have kids 12 years of age and under. They will love it. A good story, good vocal work from Ben Kingsley, Nick Frost, Simon Pegg.
I agree 100%.
I really enjoyed it.
It's interesting, Zeba, now, Bobby, you were not familiar with Coraline or Paranormal.
No, I didn't get a chance to see those.
But you've seen them both, and I love those movies. They're fantastic, a throwback to the Rankin Bass and all that stuff we grew up with. So you really enjoyed the animation, and you thought it was a little cheesy, but you thought the story really worked.
I thought it was lovely. It was.
No, I thought the subject.
You said adults who are lactose intolerant.
Well, because they got a giant wheel of brie, and they're pushing all that cheese. No, keep the story. Don't cut the cheese.
Okay.
I feel like the studio that this comes out from, I'm generally always impressed by their work because I feel like they make movies for children that don't pander to children, that don't try to be like, what's the new bright shiny thing. It's just simple, classic, timeless storytelling. Like this movie could have come out at any time.
I agree with you, and it is timeless.
Yeah.
Because it takes place in some town, and I like the concept of the Boxtrolls, and I think it's the kind of movie that you come away from it not just feeling good, but it actually was about something. There was more character development in this movie than there was actually in Two Night Stand.
Exactly.
And that's a shame.
More believable characters.
Yeah. Yes, they were. Okay. Especially the Ben Kingsley as the Mr. Bad Guy.
Fantastic.
He was really great.
He was wonderful.
He was really good. Well, our final film is called Pride, and it tells the story of the miners' strike in England in the mid-1980s and how a group of brave lesbian and gay men got together to support the strikers' family. It was an unlikely union during an unlikely time.
I think I'm starting to freak out slightly.
Your gays have arrived.
Now, I have to say, this was a movie that totally surprised me because I've taken to not reading up on the movie before I go. I was blown away. Probably of everything we watched, though I loved Lenzel and pure popcorn, this was probably the best movie we're reviewing this evening. And I really was not only moved by the story, but I also appreciated the balance between drama and humor, which I think nobody can do like the British can, because the dry humor really works in a drama.
It sure does.
And the characterizations and acting and the mix of people we know, like Bill Nighy, who could do no wrong. So,
Yes.
but you loved it as well.
Man, I did. You know, from the trailer, I expected a loopy, feel-good movie like the Full Monty. And this is based in something that really happened in history.
Yes.
And I came away thinking, why didn't I hear more about this union of the gay and lesbians and the minors? What a wonderful story. I loved it, loved it, loved it. I highly recommend people see Pride.
Now, and you brought up an interesting point too, because part of what the story is about is just how people who are oppressed really should stick together because they're really fighting the same villain.
Exactly, and I think that's what's so beautiful, because in the beginning of the film, this lesbian and gay group is trying to help the minors. They're not interested, so they find this random place in Wales to help, and it's just amazing seeing the commonalities between people. And I mean, I think if anyone who likes movies like Billy Elliot or like or like Pirate Radio, these ensemble British comedies that have a dramatic core, it was really beautiful. It was
I thought it was beautiful, and I'll tell you, there's one scene in there, you all probably know the scene I'm talking about, where Imelda Staunton and Bill Nighy are
bread and butter,
buttering bread.
Oh,
and
a
that's all I gotta
masterclass
say.
in acting.
It's such a fantastic scene, so moving, so funny, touching. Tells you so much about the characters, their relationship. That scene had more than
yes,
Two Night Stand.
Two Night Stand.
All right, I hate to keep trashing Two Night Stand, but I really enjoyed watching these pros, a couple of veterans from Harry Potter, and these new faces that I didn't really know. Younger actors. So
and
it was
they all worked well together.
They all worked very well together. And I also enjoyed, when it's based on a true story, finding out what really happened to these people after. I felt that was very moving too.
And this is during Thatcher's reign.
During Thatcher's reign, 1984, and also during a time where everybody was afraid of AIDS.
Exactly.
If you were gay. So I thought that was a great film. We all recommend, yes.
We do.
Definitely.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
In honor of Roger Ebert. Well, it's definitely been a lot of fun. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week. I'm Mike Sargent, and we're going to talk more movies here on Arise on Screen.